Captain Hansol sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien faces around the table. The Galactic Council chamber looked impressive with its glowing walls and floating displays, but Hansol had been here too many times. Today felt different, though. Today felt like the last time. The purple-skinned Altarian named Velthari spoke first. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. "Captain Hansol, we must discuss the recent incident at mining colony Epsilon 7. Hansol knew what was coming. 3 days ago, raiders had attacked the mining colony. 50 families lived there, mostly humans with some friendly aliens who chose to live in human space. The raiders wanted to take the miners as slaves and steal their equipment. When the distress call came, Hansol's ship Resilience was the closest. They arrived to find the raiders shooting at civilians. Hansol's people did what humans always did. They fought back, hard. "We saved those people," Hansol said. His voice was calm, but his hands were tight on the chair arms. The tall gray alien named Quinshaw made a clicking sound with his throat. "You killed 47 raiders, Captain." "That seems excessive." "They were shooting children." Hansol looked directly at Quinshaw. "What did you want us to do? Ask them nicely to stop?" "You could have negotiated," said another council member. "Violence should always be the last option." Hansol almost laughed, but it would not have been a happy sound. Humans had been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years. In that time, they had been sent to every dangerous place, every hopeless fight, every impossible mission. And every time they succeeded, the Council found something to complain about. Dr. Yuna, Hansol's medical officer, shifted in her chair beside him. She had treated the wounded miners. She had held crying children and bandaged their parents. Her dark eyes were angry, but she stayed quiet. They had learned that showing emotion made the Council uncomfortable. "Captain," Velthari continued, "the Council has made a decision about human expansion in the Outer Rim." Here it comes, Hansol thought. He had been expecting this for months. Humans will need to abandon the colonies in sectors 15 through 23. Your people's presence there disturbs the natural balance of the galaxy. The words hit like cold water. Those sectors contain 12 human colonies. Over 2 million people called those worlds home. They had built cities, farms, schools. Children had been born there who had never seen Earth. "Those are established colonies," Hansol said. "Some have been there for 20 years. "Yes, but they are in areas that should remain untouched," Quinshaw replied. "The Council believes these worlds would be better managed by species more suited to peaceful development." Tae-Ho, the young communications officer, touched his earpiece and looked at Hansol. His eyes were wide with something between fear and anger. He had been monitoring Council communications during the meeting, which was technically against the rules, but Hansol had told him to do it anyway. "How long do we have?" Hansol asked. 6 months to complete the evacuation," Velthari said. She looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for her. "The Council will provide assistance with relocation. And if we refuse?" The room went quiet. Several aliens looked at each other. Finally, Quinshaw spoke. "That would be unwise, Captain. The Council has ways of enforcing its decisions." Hansol stood up slowly. Around the table, several aliens tensed. Humans had a reputation for being dangerous when angry, but Hansol's face showed nothing. "We understand," he said. "Is there anything else?" "No, Captain. You are dismissed." Hansol walked out of the chamber with his team following. They said nothing until they reached their ship. The Resilience was docked at the station's human section, far from the more delicate alien vessels. Once they were in Hansol's private office, Tae-Ho spoke quickly. "Captain, I picked up encrypted transmissions during the meeting. The Council has been planning this for 2 years. Planning what exactly? To use us to clear out the dangerous sectors, then take them over once we're gone. They've already assigned those colony worlds to 3 different species." Yuna slammed her hand on the desk. "They're using us as unpaid soldiers and then stealing our homes." "It gets worse," Tae-Ho continued. "I heard references to the human problem and discussions about limiting our population growth." Hansol was quiet for a long moment. He walked to the window that looked out at the stars. 50 years ago, when humans first met the galactic community, they had been grateful just to be included. Earth was overcrowded and humans needed new worlds. The aliens had seemed so advanced, so peaceful. They spoke of harmony and cooperation. But they also spoke of humans as if they were useful animals, good for dangerous work but not quite civilized enough for real respect. "Captain, Yuna said softly. What are we going to do? Hansel turned back to his team. These people had followed him through dozens of impossible missions. They had saved alien colonies, fought off raiders, explored dangerous worlds, and asked for nothing in return except basic respect. Teho, send a message to Earth, use the old military code. What should I tell them? Tell them the gloves come off. Teho's fingers paused over his controls. Sir, are you sure? Once we send that message, I'm sure. 50 years of being polite hasn't worked. Maybe it's time they remember what we really are. The message went out on a frequency the Council didn't monitor. It would take 6 hours to reach Earth, and then things would change. Hansel wasn't sure exactly how, but he knew the people back home were not as patient as the diplomats and explorers out here. What do we do while we wait? Yuna asked. We continue to be good little humans, Hansel replied. We smile, we follow orders, and we let them think they've won. But inside, something had shifted. For 50 years, humans had tried to prove they belonged in galactic society. They had been kind, helpful, and restrained. They had followed alien rules and accepted alien judgment. Today, that ended. As the Resilients prepared to leave the Council station, Hansel looked at the massive structure one more time. Soon, these same aliens who dismissed human concerns would learn what humans had been holding back all these years. The galaxy was about to discover the difference between human kindness and human weakness, and some lessons, Hansel thought, could only be learned the hard way. The message reached Earth while most people were asleep. In the military command center beneath Seoul, Admiral Minho was drinking his third cup of coffee when the communication came through. The old code hadn't been used in 30 years, but he remembered what it meant. Minho read the message twice, then walked to a secure terminal. Within minutes, he was speaking to 12 other people around the globe. They were scattered across different time zones, but they all answered immediately. The gloves come off, he said simply. On the other end of the calls, men and women who had been waiting decades for this moment began to move. Plans that had been gathering dust were suddenly active. Ships that had been in maintenance were now ready for deployment. 2,000 light-years away, Governor Jiwoo of New Busan Colony received the same message. She was in her office looking at reports about crop yields and school construction when her secure communicator buzzed. After reading the message, she called her security chief. Begin Operation Sunrise, she told him. Ma'am, are you certain? The order comes from Earth. Begin immediately. Within an hour, New Busan looked very different. The farmers working the outer fields revealed weapons that had been hidden in barns and silos. The construction workers building new schools opened sealed containers that held military equipment. Even the teachers and shopkeepers seemed to move differently, as if they had suddenly remembered something important. Similar scenes played out on every human colony. What the aliens had seen as peaceful settlements were actually carefully disguised military positions. Every human world could become a fortress in hours. On the trading station Kepler's Rest, engineer Hyunwoo received his orders while repairing what looked like a broken cargo scanner. The device was actually a communications array that had been monitoring alien ship movements for 5 years. Hyunwoo made a few adjustments, and suddenly the array was broadcasting instead of listening. Across the galaxy, human merchant ships began reporting engine problems. They all seemed to break down in very specific places, near major trade routes, close to alien military bases, and around important resource worlds. The aliens who offered to help were surprised when the human crews politely declined assistance. We can handle it, the humans always said. Just need to run some diagnostics. What they were really doing was preparing for something much bigger. Director Yoonji sat in her small office on the diplomatic station orbiting Rigel Prime. To everyone else, she was just a cultural attaché who organized art exchanges between species. In reality, she ran the largest intelligence network in galactic history. Begin Phase 1, she told her assistant. Across the galaxy, humans in ordinary jobs suddenly became very busy. The chef at the Altarian embassy on Centauri Station started paying attention to which officials ate where and when. The janitor at the Council military headquarters began noticing which doors were locked and which computers were left unguarded. The humans had learned something important in their 50 years among the HFY stars. Aliens trusted them because they seemed harmless. A human librarian or maintenance worker could go anywhere, see anything, and nobody worried about it. That trust was about to be tested. On the council station where Han Solo's ship had just departed, Velthari felt uneasy. She had watched the human captain's reaction to the evacuation order, and something bothered her. Han Solo had accepted the decision too easily. She tried to share her concerns with other council members, but they dismissed her worries. Humans always complain initially, Quinshaw told her, but they always comply in the end. They need us more than we need them. Velthari wasn't convinced. She had studied human history and knew they had a saying about sleeping giants. She wondered if the council understood what they were dealing with. Meanwhile, Admiral Minho stood in the war room beneath Seoul, watching displays that showed the position of every human ship, colony, and installation in the galaxy. For 50 years, humans had built their presence carefully, always asking permission, always following alien rules. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had also been preparing for the day when asking nicely wouldn't be enough. Status report, Minho said. All colonies report ready, said his aide. Operation Sunrise is complete. Every settlement can defend itself within 4 hours. Merchant fleet? 700 ships are in position. All report engine troubles that will keep them exactly where we need them. Intelligence network? Director Yunji confirms all assets are active. We have eyes on every major alien installation. Minho nodded. The next phase would be more dramatic. But this quiet preparation was crucial. The aliens thought humans were reluctantly packing to leave their colonies. Instead, those colonies were becoming military bases. Back on New Busan, Governor Jiwoo walked through her town's main street. To casual observers, everything looked normal. Children played in parks, people worked in shops, families had dinner together. But Jiwoo could see the subtle changes. The man selling fruit at the corner stand had a military bearing now. The woman walking her dog was actually patrolling the perimeter. The teenagers playing sports were practicing formations that looked like games but were really combat drills. Governor, her aide approached carefully. We've detected several alien scouting ships approaching the system. Jiwoo smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Let them come. It's time they learned what human hospitality really looks like. The alien ships belonged to the hegemony, one of the species that had been promised human colony worlds once the evacuation was complete. They expected to find humans packing their belongings and preparing to leave. Instead, they found something that confused them. The human settlements were bustling with activity, but not the kind they expected. Ships were being loaded but with supplies, not personal belongings. Buildings were being modified but to make them stronger, not to prepare them for new owners. Are they expanding? Asked the hegemony scout ship captain. His sensors officer checked the readings again. It appears so, sir. Energy output has increased by 300%. They've activated power systems we didn't know they had, but they're supposed to be evacuating. Maybe they didn't get the message. The captain decided to send a polite inquiry to Governor Jiwoo. Her response came back quickly. Thank you for your concern. Human colony New Busan is operating normally. Please maintain safe distance from our defensive systems. Defensive systems? The captain looked at his tactical display. Yesterday, New Busan had appeared to be a peaceful farming colony, with light shields and basic security. Today, his scanners detected weapon signatures that made his ship feel very small. Similar reports were coming in from other systems. Human colonies that had seemed defenseless yesterday were now showing military capabilities that shouldn't exist. On Earth, Admiral Minho received these reports with satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. The aliens were confused but not yet alarmed. They still thought this was some kind of misunderstanding. Phase 2 would make things much clearer. Send the message, Minho told his communications officer. Across the galaxy, every human installation received the same simple instruction. Show them what we really are. The age of human politeness was ending. The age of human honesty was about to begin. The first sign that something had changed came when the Galactic Communications Network went silent. Not broken or damaged, just suddenly restricted to one channel. Every screen, every broadcast system, every communication device in known space displayed the same image, a simple human flag against a field of stars. Then Jae Sung began to speak. People of the galaxy, he said in perfectly calm voice. For 50 years, humanity has served as your protectors, your problem solvers, and your warriors. We have died for your colonies, bled for your trade routes, and sacrificed our own interests for galactic peace. On the council station, Quinn Shaw stared at the screen with growing horror. How are they controlling our communications? His technical staff scrambled to regain control, but every attempt failed. Somehow humans had taken over systems that should have been impossible to hack. In return, Jae-sung continued, you have treated us as servants. You send us to fight your battles, then criticize us for winning. You enjoy the safety we provide, then demand we abandon the homes we have built. Velthari felt cold fear settling in her chest. This was not the tone of a species preparing to comply with council demands. Today, that relationship ends. You wanted to see what Deathworlders really are? Very well. But understand this, everything you have seen from humanity until now has been us being kind. The broadcast cut to scenes throughout the galaxy. The human merchant ships that had been suffering engine troubles suddenly revealed their true nature. Cargo holds open to show weapon systems. Engine repairs became weapons tests. Trading vessels transformed into warships more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. Commander Su-jin stood on the bridge of what had been registered as a simple cargo hauler called Peaceful Trader. Now, with its disguise system shut down, the ship showed its real name, Retribution. It was the first true human warship, built in secret over 20 years. All systems online, her weapons officer reported. Target lock on Council Station Delta 7. Hold position, Su-jin ordered. We're not here to destroy. We're here to demonstrate. She opened a channel to the Council Station. Council Station Delta 7. This is Commander Su-jin of the Human Navy. Please evacuate all personnel to minimum safe distance. You have 10 minutes. Human Navy? The station commander sounded confused. There is no human navy. There is now. The Retribution fired a single shot. Not at the station itself, but at an asteroid field nearby. The asteroid belt, which had existed for millions of years, simply ceased to exist. Where there had been rocks and ice, there was now empty space and a slowly expanding cloud of particles. That was a demonstration of minimum force, Su-jin announced. Please evacuate the station. On dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Humans who had lived peacefully among alien populations for decades suddenly revealed themselves as something entirely different. Dong-hyun had been a simple trader on the alien world of Kelros for 15 years. He sold earth crops and bought alien art. Everyone knew him as a quiet, friendly human who caused no trouble. Today, Dong-hyun walked into the Planetary Defense Center and politely asked to speak with the military commander. I'm sorry, the guard said, but civilians are not allowed in this facility. That's fine, Dong-hyun replied. I'm not a civilian. The guard reached for his weapon, but Dong-hyun moved faster. Within seconds, every guard in the facility was unconscious but unharmed. Dong-hyun had used weapons that targeted alien nervous systems specifically, causing temporary paralysis without permanent damage. He sat down at the Defense Center's main computer and began typing. Within minutes, he had complete control of the planet's defense grid. Kelros Control, this is Agent Dong-hyun of Human Intelligence. Your planetary weapons are now under human control. Please remain calm and no one will be harmed. Similar takeovers happened on 47 worlds simultaneously. In each case, local human residents revealed themselves as highly trained operatives who had been in place for years. Dr. Nara had spent 8 years studying alien biology at the prestigious Centauri Science Institute. Her research on cross-species medicine had earned awards and respect throughout the scientific community. What no one knew was that her real research had been developing non-lethal biological agents specific to different alien species. Dr. Nara, her research assistant, asked, "What are those containers you're preparing?" "Insurance," she replied. "Don't worry, this won't hurt anyone permanently." She released carefully designed airborne agents into the ventilation systems of 12 major alien military installations. Within hours, entire fleets found their crews suffering from sudden, overwhelming fatigue. Not painful, not dangerous, just completely incapacitating. The hegemony's third fleet, which had been moving toward human colonies, found themselves unable to stay awake. Their ships drifted in space while their crews slept peacefully. "What did they do to us?" demanded Fleet Commander Ziktar, fighting to keep his eyes open. His medical officer ran desperate scans. "Unknown biological agent, sir. It's not harming us, just making us very sleepy. Can you counteract it? I don't even understand how it works. It seems designed specifically for our species' brain chemistry. The same scene played out across multiple alien fleets. Thousands of warships found themselves helpless not because they were destroyed, but because their crews couldn't function. And in every case, they received the same message: this is temporary. When you wake up, perhaps we can discuss terms that work for everyone. Back on the council station, emergency meetings were being called every hour. What had started as a simple human evacuation order had somehow become a galactic crisis. How is this possible? Quinshaw demanded. Human ships are civilian vessels. Human colonies are agricultural settlements. Humans don't have military technology. Velthari had been studying the data for hours. I don't think that's true, she said quietly. I think humans have been hiding their real capabilities for decades. Why would they do that? Because they wanted us to like them. They wanted to be part of the galactic community peacefully. And now they've decided peaceful isn't working. The communication network flickered back to life with Jae Sung's voice. Some of you are wondering why we hid our true strength. The answer is simple: because you wouldn't have accepted us if you knew what we really were. Images appeared on screens showing human colonies as they really existed. What aliens had seen as simple farming communities were actually fortified cities with defensive systems that could withstand any attack. What had appeared to be mining operations were actually massive industrial complexes producing technology beyond anything the Council possessed. We are from a death world, Jae Sung continued. We evolved fighting for survival every day, but we learned something our homeworld couldn't teach us: how to be civilized. We chose to be peaceful not because we were weak, but because we believed in cooperation. The images shifted to show the galaxy's real threats, the things that lived in the dark spaces between stars. Cosmic horrors that fed on energy and matter, creatures that could consume entire star systems. While you debated politics in your safe council chambers, humans have been fighting these things for 50 years. We have died by the millions to keep them away from your worlds, and you never even knew we were protecting you. The revelation hit the galactic community like cold water. The dangerous sectors where humans lived weren't just harsh environments. They were battlefields in a war most species never knew existed. So now you have a choice, Jae Sung said. You can continue to treat us as servants, in which case we will withdraw our protection and let you face the galaxy's real dangers alone. Or you can treat us as equals and partners. The decision is yours, but understand the time for human patience has ended. The broadcast ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. For the first time in 50 years, the other species began to understand what they were really dealing with. Humans weren't just useful fighters from a dangerous world. They were the only thing standing between civilization and the dark. The proof came 3 days later, when humanity stepped aside. Dr. Boram had spent 20 years studying what humans called the things that shouldn't exist, while other scientists published papers about stellar formation and planetary geology. Boram tracked creatures that could devour light itself and entities that fed on the space between atoms. Now she stood before the Emergency Council Assembly, surrounded by aliens who had never imagined such horrors existed. This is a void hunter, Boram said, displaying a three-dimensional image of something that hurt to look at. It was roughly the size of a small moon, but its surface seemed to absorb not just light but reality itself. They exist in the space between dimensions and consume matter by unmaking it at the quantum level. The council members stared in horrified silence. The thing in the display moved in ways that defied physics, folding space around itself like origami. How many are there? Velthari asked, her voice barely a whisper. We've cataloged over 200 individual entities. They've been trying to break into our galaxy for approximately 8,000 years. Quinshaw found his voice. Why haven't we detected them? Because humans have been stopping them before they could reach your sensors. Every mining operation in the Outer Rim is actually a containment facility. Every dangerous colony is actually a fortress guarding a weak point in dimensional space. Boram changed the display to show the galaxy as humans really saw it. The beautiful, safe inner worlds where the council met were surrounded by a ring of human settlements. But those settlements weren't random. They formed a perfect defensive perimeter around the vulnerable civilizations within. For 50 years, humans have been dying to keep these things away from your worlds, Boram continued. We've lost entire colonies to entities that exist partially outside normal space-time. We've sacrificed millions of lives to protect species who see us as barely civilized brutes. Commander Wu Jin stepped forward. Unlike the other humans who had spoken to the council, he looked exactly like what he was, a soldier who had seen too much combat. Would you like to see what a typical human farming colony actually faces? He asked. Without waiting for permission, he activated a holographic recorder. The council chamber filled with images from the Battle of New Kyoto, recorded just 6 months earlier. The colonists of New Kyoto had been harvesting grain when reality itself began to tear. Through the gaps came things that had never been alive but weren't quite dead either. They moved like liquid darkness and turned everything they touched into more of themselves. The recording showed human civilians, farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, transforming into a military unit with frightening efficiency. Children were evacuated to underground bunkers while their parents took positions with weapons that seemed to fire concentrated starlight. This attack lasted 14 hours. Wu Jin narrated as the hologram showed humans fighting entities that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. We lost 347 people, but we stopped the incursion before it could spread to neighboring systems. The aliens watched in stunned silence as human farmers used weapons that could cut through the fabric of space itself. They saw children as young as 12 operating defensive systems that most military engineers couldn't understand. After the battle, Wu Jin continued, the survivors went back to farming. Because that's what humans do. We protect our homes and then we get on with our lives. He changed the recording to show the aftermath. The same people who had fought impossible monsters were now repairing buildings, tending wounded, and replanting crops. They moved with the casual efficiency of people who had done this many times before. New Kyoto was listed in your records as a peaceful agricultural settlement, Wu Jin said. Every human colony has a similar story. The council members were beginning to understand something terrible. The humans hadn't been living in the dangerous sectors despite the threats. They had been living there because of the threats. Why? Velthari asked. Why didn't you tell us? Boram's expression was sad rather than angry. Because you wouldn't have believed us, and even if you had, you would have seen us as even more dangerous than you already did. She displayed another image, this one showing the full scope of the threats humanity faced. Beyond the void hunters were things even worse. Star devourers that consumed entire solar systems, reality worms that could unmake history itself, and entities so alien that human minds could barely process their existence. These things are constantly probing our defenses, Boram explained. Every few years, something new finds a way to break through. We fight it, we learn from it, and we prepare for the next attack. And you've been doing this alone, Velthari said. Yes. Because we thought that if we could protect you without you having to face these horrors, that would be enough. We thought if we were good neighbors and helpful allies, you would eventually accept us as equals. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Quinsha spoke. Show us what happens when you stop protecting us. Wu Jin nodded grimly. Humanity began withdrawing our early warning systems 3 days ago. The first probe broke through 12 hours later. The display showed the Kepler system, a prosperous Altarian colony with 50 million inhabitants. It had always been considered one of the safest systems in the galaxy, far from any conflict zone. The probe that emerged from dimensional space was small, barely the size of a shuttlecraft. But it immediately began rewriting the laws of physics in the space around it. Gravity started flowing upward. Light began to travel in curves. Time moved backward in some areas and forward in others. Altarian ships responded normally, Wu Jin narrated as the recording showed the colony's defense fleet approaching the anomaly. Their weapons and shields are designed for fighting other civilized species. The first Altarian ship that got too close simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed or damaged, it became nothing, leaving no debris, no energy signature, nothing at all. The probe is still there, Wu Jin said. It's growing larger and the effect is spreading. At current rate of expansion, the entire Kepler system will be uninhabitable within 6 months. Can you stop it? Velthari asked desperately. Yes, human forces can contain it within 48 hours, but only if we're asked properly. The threat was clear without being stated. Humanity had spent 50 years asking politely to be treated as equals. Now the other species would have to ask politely to be saved. Another council member, a reptilian saurian named Keshvor, finally spoke. What do you want from us? Respect, said Ah Young. the human diplomatic attaché who had been silent until now. Representation equal to our contributions. Recognition that human colonies are our sovereign territory, not temporary settlements you can relocate at will. And if we refuse, then you'll face the galaxy's real threats without us. Good luck. The cold certainty in her voice made it clear this wasn't a bluff. Humanity was prepared to withdraw completely and let the other species discover what lay beyond their safe borders. How do we know you won't just abandon us once you get what you want? Quinshaw demanded. Ah Young smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Because unlike some species, humans keep their word. We've been protecting you for 50 years when you gave us nothing but criticism. Do you really think we'll stop protecting you once you start treating us fairly? Boram stepped forward again. There's something else you should understand. The threats we face are getting stronger. The entities we fought 20 years ago seem almost harmless compared to what's emerging now. She displayed star charts showing the galaxy's edge, where human monitoring stations kept watch on the vast darkness beyond. Something big is coming. Our long-range sensors detect massive disruptions in dimensional space, moving toward our galaxy. Whatever it is, it makes the Void Hunters look like small pests. The implications hung heavy in the chamber. The galaxy faced an enemy that could end all civilization, and the only species capable of fighting it had just announced they were tired of being treated as second-class citizens. How long do we have? Velthari asked. 2 years, maybe 3. And what will it take to defeat this threat? Everything we have and the full cooperation of every species in the galaxy. This isn't something humanity can handle alone. The council members looked at each other with growing understanding. The human ultimatum wasn't just about dignity or fair treatment. It was about survival. The galaxy could choose to work with humanity as equals, or it could face annihilation with its pride intact. But it could not have both. 6 months later, Captain Hansol walked into a very different council chamber. The cold, formal meeting room had been replaced with something that looked more like a military command center. Representatives from dozens of species worked alongside humans at integrated stations, sharing information and resources in ways that would have been impossible before. Velthari approached him with what humans had learned to recognize as an Altarian smile. Captain Hansol, welcome to the Galactic Defense Council. It's Admiral Hansol now, he replied, indicating the new insignia on his uniform. Though I still prefer Captain. The changes had not come easily. It took the loss of 3 entire star systems to convince the galaxy species that humanity's warnings were real. The Kepler incident had been just the beginning. When entities started breaking through humanity's defensive perimeter in multiple locations, the other species finally understood what they faced. The reformed Galactic Accord had been signed in emergency session, with humanity as equal partners rather than junior members. Human colonies were recognized as sovereign territory. Human representatives held positions equal to any other species. Most importantly, humanity's expertise in fighting cosmic threats was finally acknowledged. Status report? Hansol asked as they walked through the command center. The joint training programs are ahead of schedule, Velthari replied. Ambassador Changmin's cultural exchange initiative is working better than expected. We have volunteers from 47 species learning to fight alongside human forces. Changmin looked up from his planning station, surrounded by aliens reviewing tactical manuals. The Saurians are particularly good students, he said. Their natural aggression translates well to defensive combat. The Altarians excel at support roles. Their coordination abilities are remarkable. Any problems with integration? Some species are still adjusting to human military doctrine. They're used to fighting other civilized enemies, not cosmic horrors that ignore physics. Commander Sun He approached their group, her uniform showing the insignia of the new Joint Defense Forces. We've had some cultural misunderstandings, she admitted. The Centaurians keep trying to negotiate with entities that don't have language or consciousness. The hegemony still thinks overwhelming firepower can solve everything. But they're learning? Yes, the first joint exercise went well. We simulated a Void Hunter incursion, and the mixed teams performed at 70% efficiency. That's better than some pure human units managed in their first encounters. Hansol nodded approvingly. The galaxy was finally working together as partners rather than as dominant species and servants. What about the big threat? He asked quietly. Sun He's expression grew serious. Dr. Boram has better intelligence on that. She's in the Deep Analysis Center. They found Boram surrounded by displays showing the galaxy's edge, where humanity's most advanced monitoring stations tracked the approaching darkness. The readings were worse than anyone had hoped. "It's definitely coming," she said without looking away from the displays. "We're getting clearer images now, and it's not good news." The display showed something that defied description. It was vast beyond comprehension, stretching across light years of space. But it wasn't a ship or creature in any recognizable sense. It was more like a living tear in reality itself, consuming everything in its path and growing larger with each meal. "What are we calling it?" Han Solo asked. "The technical designation is Omega-level reality cascade event, but the field teams just call it the Unmaker." "How long until it reaches us?" 18 months, assuming it maintains current velocity. But it's been accelerating as it consumes more mass. Velthari studied the readings with growing horror. "How do we fight something like that?" "Carefully," Boram replied, "and together. This isn't something any one species can handle, not even humanity. We need every ship, every resource, every idea the galaxy can provide. Do we have a plan?" "We have several plans. Most of them involve sacrifice on a scale the galaxy has never seen." Changmin joined them, his usual diplomatic optimism replaced by grim determination. The council voted this morning. Full mobilization, all species contributing. The hegemony is providing their manufacturing capacity. The Altarians are coordinating logistics, the Saurians are training assault forces. And humanity? We're doing what we've always done. Leading from the front. Han Solo felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. 50 years ago, humanity had joined the galactic community hoping to find peace among the stars. Instead, they had found themselves defending civilization itself against threats most species couldn't imagine. But now, at least they weren't fighting alone. "Admiral," Sun He said, "we have incoming priority signal from the Outer Rim." The communication came from Captain Li Jun of the monitoring station at Galaxy's Edge. His image flickered with interference from the cosmic storms generated by the approaching entity. "Admiral Han Solo." Li Jun's voice was steady despite what his sensors were showing. "The Unmaker has changed course. It's moving faster and heading directly for the core worlds. Estimated time to arrival?" 10 months, sir." "Maybe less." Han Solo closed his eyes for a moment. 10 months to prepare for a battle that would determine whether civilization survived or was erased from existence. "Send word to all defense councils," he ordered. "Begin final preparations." As the communication ended, Velthari touched Han Solo's arm gently. "Admiral, I want you to know, we understand now what humanity has been carrying all these years, and we're grateful. Gratitude won't stop the Unmaker, no, but unity might. For the first time in galactic history, every species is working toward the same goal." Han Solo looked around the command center, watching humans and aliens collaborate with an efficiency born of mutual respect, rather than enforced cooperation. It wasn't perfect. There were still cultural differences, communication problems, and political tensions. But it was better than anything the galaxy had achieved before. "There's something else," Boram said quietly. "The deep scans are picking up transmissions from inside the Unmaker. I think there are survivors in there. Entire civilizations that were consumed but somehow maintained their existence within the entity. Can we communicate with them?" "We're trying. If we can establish contact, they might know how to fight this thing from the inside." The implications were staggering. The Unmaker might not just be a cosmic disaster. It might be a prison holding countless species that had faced this threat before. "Priority message coming in," announced a communications officer. "It's from Earth." The message was simple but carried the authority of humanity's homeworld. "All resources committed. Earth fleet departing for final staging area. See you at the edge of forever." Han Solo smiled grimly. Humanity's homeworld, the death world that had forged them into what they were, was sending everything it had to this final battle. "Set course for the staging area," he ordered. "It's time to see what the galaxy can accomplish when it works together." As their ship prepared to depart, Han Solo received one final message. It was from a human colony in the Outer Rim, one of the settlements that had been ordered to evacuate all those months ago. "Admiral, this is Governor Jiwoo of New Busan. We're still here and we're ready to fight. Whatever comes next, humanity faces it together." The message was being echoed from every human settlement, every ship, every station. But now, for the first time, it was joined by voices from across the galaxy, Altarian harmonic declarations, Saurian war songs, hegemony unity chants. The galaxy had finally learned what humanity had always known. Sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be prepared for war, and sometimes the only way to remain kind is to first teach others not to mistake kindness for weakness. The final battle would determine which lesson the universe would learn. But for the first time in 50 years, humanity wouldn't face it alone.